Welcome back, everybody, to another live stream. We've got a really cool one today. We're going to talk with our friend Gus from Microshift. It's 2020. Drivetrains have gotten very complicated. We've got electronic shifting, hydraulic shifting, all very expensive. And I think Microshift is a really interesting brand at this time because it gives people, similar functionality, but at much affordable and friendly price points. And really stoked to talk with our friend Gus. But before we do get going, I want to thank our Patreon supporters that keep all this content coming. And if you guys enjoy these videos, consider supporting the channel yourself on Patreon. Not only do you get to jump in on these calls and ask your own question, but you also get lots of cool perks from a lot of the brands that we have interviewed on the show. So with all that said, let's welcome Gus to the live stream. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Cool. So for me, at least, Microshift has kind of bubbled up to the top in the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years, but it's actually been around for quite some time. Can you give us a little brand history of how long Microshift has been around?
Yeah, for sure. So it started in 1999 as sort of a Taiwanese super team of drivetrain dudes. So, people came from different companies. Falcon, Suntour was big, and then that went under, and kind of, right around that time, Taiwan sort of needed a drivetrain brand. Shimano in Japan was really popular, obviously, and so Taiwan said, hey, why not us? And that was kind of how Microshift got started. So they started out with really simple products. Grip shift was really the first product that they came out with. And it was something that SRAM had kind of pioneered. And then Microshift said, hey, okay, let's make it better. And so they made, what's now considered to be the kind of like the MRX style, grip shifter. They made that. And had good success with it, but there are lawsuits, and the drivetrain world is a very difficult world to exist in. So they've kind of but we've slowly made our way to the point now where it's like, yeah, we have groups out there that are different than everything else and kind of can stand on their own legs.
Yeah, I think one of the first drivetrains I got to try from you guys that really stood out in recent memory was the OEM drivetrain that came with the Marin Nicasio Plus.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. At what point did Microshift parts start shipping OEM with bikes?
Well, that has actually always been their focus, really. So, it's a big bike market out there. Maybe they weren't a household name in the US, but certainly in the Chinese market, in South America, in different places, it's they've been on OEM bikes for a long time. And they make a wide variety of products, or we make a wide variety of products. So it's not just stuff that you would necessarily see on a bike. A lot of times it's like the front derailleur, which you may have used a Microshift front derailleur in the past. It's not like the first item that you're looking at trying to figure out, hey, which bike am I going to buy? Oh, well, it has a Microshift front derailleur. I'm sold, Right. So OEM is really was their main focus. And that's kind of why I got started with the brand, was to build more of an aftermarket focus, because you really need both. You need, if you're going to have OEMs trust your product, you need to have aftermarket support. You need to have people out there that are like, oh yeah, Microshift, that stuff's cool. So the Advent stuff that was on the Nicasio Plus, that was the first project that I worked on.
Okay.
So I'm glad to hear that you liked it.
It jumped out to me because I think it was using parts that you couldn't buy as a consumer. I think it had a 11-46 Sunrace in 9-speed that I think was only OEM at that time.
Yeah, for sure. Sunrace, it's a competitive world out there, right? So Sunrace said they saw that we had an 1142 9-speed cassette, and they were like, oh, we'll make an 1146, and that's so that'll be better. So that's kind of how it goes. But some OEMs really like range. They say, hey, range is the most important thing, and some say no, it needs to have good, even steps in the shifting. That's kind of why we did 1142. We said, once you go up to 46, the jumps become bigger. But the market kind of told us, well, maybe some people don't care, maybe for some people that extra low range is really important. So that's definitely something we're looking at doing too.
So will that 11-46 and 9-speed trickle out aftermarket, or is that just only going to be on
for
OEM
sure.
bikes?
No, it's on the way. That's going to happen. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you can claim the exclusive on that, but it's not like a huge secret or anything. We're definitely going to that in the 9-speed, and then we have the 10-speed stuff too now. So that's been a big that's been cool for us too. That's kind of the next thing that's rolling along in this push towards sort of like, stuff that's has aftermarket potential, stuff that people would buy and put on their own bike. One of the things that, like when I started, the everybody was saying at Microshift kind of said, hey, let's look at Shimano. Shimano does really amazing stuff, and they do, they're really cool. Let's look at Shimano and just make something that's just like that, but a little bit less expensive. And we're kind of going away from that now and saying, well, Shimano, there are a lot of areas of the market that Shimano doesn't really want to play in. Let's play in those, let's take some of that high-end technology that, maybe they don't want to trickle down to the mid-level, and let's trickle it down to the mid-level and see what happens. And so far that's been really good for us.
Yeah, I've noticed that as of late, it's felt as if both SRAM and Shimano, typically you'd see a trickle down, but now, it's just not happening. And if you're not interested in going fully electronic or having hydraulic brakes, then you're kind of left to fend for yourself.
Right. Yeah. And part of that is because they need, Shimano is the biggest bike company in the world, right? Like they need to have lanes for all their products to be in, they need there to be a reason to upgrade to 105 or upgrade to Ultegra. And that can be really hard for them to manage. And then, the OEs of really big bike companies, they like things to stay the same for the most part. I think, their job would be really easy if there was like one brand and you just did that. And then there was no question. We're kind of trying to make it tough on them a little bit, by saying, well, you can do Shimano. And obviously we're not, Microshift doesn't have the Shimano name necessarily, but we're going to have features that, boy, you can really sell a bike on. And, we'll kind of pit those two against each other, right? One salesperson might say, well, hey, this has Shimano on it, so it's better. But another one might be able to kind of explain like, hey, wide range 9-speed, that's kind of neat. There are a lot of reasons to run that, that don't even involve, it's not like having fewer speeds isn't even necessarily worse, in terms of like adjustment range and mud shedding and all that sort of stuff. So,
I was kind of really excited about the box 9 stuff and also like the 9-10 speed stuff you guys are putting out. What do you think is causing this? I wouldn't say like regression into 10 or 9 speed, but kind of the renewed interest in making components for those speeds.
Yeah. I think part of it is that Shimano won't do it. They really haven't, they kind of stopped at 10 speed, and boy, having worked at a bike shop for a while, you talk to all the mechanics and they're all like, oh yeah, 9 speed, that stuff was the best. They're really nostalgic for it because it was really easy to work on. You put it on, you didn't even have to turn the barrel adjuster. Like it just worked. The old XTR 9-speed stuff was like, I still have some of it. It's bomb proof. So that stuff was really cool. And back then everything was simple, road derailleurs and mountain derailleurs basically had the same pull. And everything just kind of worked. And now it doesn't, if you've set up a 12-speed system, you have to have everything perfect. The derailleur hanger has to be perfect. There has to be no mud in the system. You can't hit it against a rock. You can't, the adjustment range is very, very small on, something like Eagle, which doesn't mean it's not cool. It's still a cool product.
Right.
But it's just like, if you want something that you can just kind of slap on and not really worry about, boy, 9-speed's cool for that.
Right. For sure. Yeah. It requires less of a perfectly antiseptic environment for good shifting. There's a lot of slop that you can have in there.
Yep. Yeah. You can be a terrible mechanic like me and just get it working,
I think that's why I'm attracted to it, because I'm like a mediocre mechanic at best.
You should give yourself a little bit of credit, you're hacking some pretty crazy stuff together.
Yeah. So I'm curious, this is a question that I've always had personally. I don't know if you have the answer to it, but do you know why that shifting compatibility drifted between road and mountain? Was that, purely as a dollars thing, or was there some actual functional reason why they couldn't communicate?
No, it's functional for sure.
Okay.
It just has to do with cassette range. Basically, like if you think about it, like let's say you had a cassette that had all 16 tooth teeth. It's like a 10-speed cassette, but everything's a 16 tooth cog. Shifting is incredibly easy. All you have to do is knock it to the left, and it's shifting. You knock it to the, it requires, that would be like the smoothest possible cassette. Now, obviously, it would not be fashionable by today's standards, but work really well. When you have like an 1127, 1128, it's not that different from that, right? It doesn't, if you think about there are two pulleys on a derailleur, right? The top pulley is the guide pulley and the bottom pulley is the tension pulley. The guide pulley is really how you're moving the chain. It's guiding the chain up that cassette. And so the guide pulley needs to pull, if you're going up to a 42 tooth, 46 tooth, 50 tooth, that guide pulley needs to move a ton vertically as well as horizontally. So it just needs to move a really long ways. That was another project that kind of harebrained scheme. Like when I first started, I was asking the engineers at Microshift, like, hey, why can't we make a clutch derailleur that works with like an 1142 cassette and normal road shifters, like 10-speed road shifters. And they said, hey, they tried it, and it was basically like the shifting effort was so hard that they were literally wearing out shifters at the bearing, like just from pulling on it, pushing it so hard. So it just doesn't work. You need to pull more cable, basically.
Right, for sure. Cool. Well, let's talk about Advent X. I feel like that made a pretty big splash. A lot of people got excited about it because of the functional range, but also the price point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we look, when we came out with Advent, that was kind of our like mission statement. Like, hey, this is 9-speed stuff. You can, it's kind of punk rock, right? Like you put it on, it's inexpensive. It's built like a brick Buick. It's, it's not going to stop you from doing any sort of riding, but it's durable, it's tough, and when we looked at Advent X, we said, hey, let's make our version of XTR, like our version of, let's leave no stone unturned and make this as nice as we can, like change whatever we want. And so really the first thing to my mind didn't have to do with the cassette or speeds or anything. It was the shifter. The original Advent has a index thumb style kind of, what Shimano used to call rapid fire, that style of shifter. And that's great for most riding, but for mountain biking, it's just okay. You can't really reach the, it's harder to get the right brake position and blah, blah, blah. It's not as modern. So we went to a thumb, kind of a SRAM style trigger, spent a ton of time making that thing work. And it's funny because every time you try to do something new, you realize, oh, there are like 20 patents that are stopping you from doing what you want to do. So SRAM has like a patent on, which direction you're pushing the shifter, and it can be here, it can't be here, it can move this much. And so every project that we start involves like 6 months of just reading patents. So anyway, but yeah, Advent X, it has the new shifter, and then weight was the other big thing. We're like, hey, we want to make this really light, like crazy light, because when you look at like a group like NX is an amazing group. It's really cool. It's on a ton of bikes, but it's heavy. The cassette is a bone anchor. It's like 600-700 grams, something like that. And so we said, hey, we want to have a really light cassette. So that's kind of what brought us to 10-speed. We said, you have fewer cogs. We've already kind of proven to ourselves that people don't necessarily need more speeds to buy something. You have fewer cogs. It's going to be lighter weight. We kind of stuck with an 1148 range because, we could have tried to do like 53 or 54 and a half or whatever. But 48, we kind of felt like, well, that's low enough for a lot of people. Maybe not everybody, but like 80%, 90% of people. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being really light. It's, it's like 425 grams or something, which is crazy. So the whole group is lighter than Shimano XT. It's about the same weight as GX, and we really think that's neat. Just from like you can put this on a XC race bike and be like, yeah, it fits.
Right. When you guys developed that, did you have road shifter compatibility in mind already, or was that kind of, we want to do a mountain bike group set and then maybe think about
We've
road?
kind of, the road stuff that you reviewed, it's Microshift has a ton of different shifters, right? They make, we make bar end shifters, drop bar shifters, thumb shifters, all kinds of stuff. And so we always knew, hey, we can make a road shifter for this. What we kind of look at is, hey, is there going to be OEM support for this and aftermarket support? If we come out with a great aftermarket group and sell, 3,000 groups, that's great, but it's not enough to turn the machines on,
Right.
And so we really need to make sure that we have OEM support for this stuff as well. And so for that group, we kind of float it out there and say, well, is this something that you think would fit? And, luckily, we've had a lot of people say, hey, that's cool. We want to make a bike kind of, that uses stuff like that. I think the only trouble that we've seen is that people are like, hey, this is too nice. It's like if we have a bike that has like, a rival with a 1042 cassette, it's like, this has more range than that. It's like, it's kind of hard to figure out the line logic, but we feel like that's a good problem to have. We want to make it as nice as possible.
Yeah. Were you surprised by the response to Advent X?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we knew that it would be, we thought once we kind of saw the product, we're like, yeah, this stuff rocks and it's going to be popular. But then we have a whole supply chain that the stuff has to get through. So, that's the one thing I'll say right now. It's like, it's as soon as it gets into stock in the US, it just vaporizes. And we have more coming and kind of with the, with the pandemic, it's been really difficult to get product through, through the system. So
right.
We're doing as best we can with that. But it's definitely more. We could sell a lot more of it if we could get it into the United States.
Right.
So it has been. It seems like it really hit kind of this like good spot between being like good, light enough and kind of durable enough and have enough range, but not be, again, the price is pretty dang good. I mean, it's pretty.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Like I put on my Bambora, it's become the Franken bike. Like everything I test goes on that bike eventually.
Nice.
And usually I take things off and put other things on, but I've left it on there. I mean, I actually really like it.
Cool. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, I have some on my bike too. So
yeah,
we should ride sometime when this is all over.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it does hit that nice nexus of, it's got the range I like. Before I put the 48 tooth on there, I tested it with the Prime 950 just out of curiosity, and it did the 50 fine. And the shifting, had a nice kind of mechanical charm to it, which I actually liked. I was like, oh, it feels a little punk rock.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's something that actually, I really like about that particular shifter form factor. Like, man, you press that button and it's like, chat,
right.
there's no question that you shifted, you definitely
right.
shifted.
If you like mechanical things, that shifter reminds you it's very mechanical.
Yep, no doubt about it. I'm curious. Can you remind me what size chainring are you running with that?
I'm running a 38 tooth oval from Absolute Black.
Okay. And how's that treating you? I'm always curious about the gear steps, are you finding I don't know. Yeah. What do you think of the cassette?
I think it's great. It's not, it's not as granular as 11 or 12, granted, but I'm not super sensitive to cadence. I did try the box 9 stuff. They're 11 to 50, and it's amazing just that having one less gear that really bothered me, but having 10 was just enough to have that range as well. So yeah, I dig it. I think it's totally, if someone wants to do kind of a punk rock drivetrain on their gravel bike or mixed terrain bike, it's such a good option.
Well, I don't know how nerdy you want to get here, but we really go over, the cassette chart, the cassette, what are all the jumps on the cassette? Where are they?
Right.
What's the best place for them? There are arguments, right? Like SRAM has a different philosophy than Shimano about, where you should have, should you have the same jump all the way up the cassette, or, do you have it be more like big jumps on the small gears and blah, blah, blah. I know that one of the things that I think our cassette does really well is has really even jumps. It's about 15%, give or take. Obviously the math doesn't work out perfectly, but it's, about 15% give or take, and all the way up. And that's something that, stuff like if you look at the box cassette, well, no, the jumps are definitely, the range is great, but the jumps are definitely not all predictable. On the mountain bike, I think that's usually fine because you're more just like trying to, hammer over stuff. But on a road bike, I think it is a little nicer to have something that's more predictable.
Yeah, I think when like on typical road grades where you do have a chance to settle in, find your cadence, that it's a little bit more noticeable. I think in mountain bike terrain where it's constantly undulating and you're just trying to stay on top of the gear, then the bigger jumps are okay.
Yep. Yep. And I'm based in the Midwest, in Minneapolis. So for me, I could probably run an 1132 and it'd be fine. Like I don't know if I really need quite all the, quite all that range. But then when I take a trip out, out west, you definitely realize quickly, like, oh yeah, that 48 tooth is pretty nice.
So are there any bikes coming out that are going to have that OEM with the drop bar shifter?
Yes.
Yep.
That's about all I can tell you.
That's all I can say.
It's like we have relationships with a lot of great brands, and like Marin did this great bike. I mean, the Nicasio Plus is such a cool bike. Like it's kind of insane how much bike that is for the money. And that's not just the shifters. It's like the whole package is just really neat. The way I look at it is like, I go on a group ride, right, with all, friends that are on all kinds of different bikes. And, we kind of call it I call it the rich dad's ride. Because, man, everybody has like a $7,000 bike. They're all like, Minneapolis has all these Fortune 500 companies. They all work for like Cargill and have spent a lot of money on bikes. And, you could hop on that Nicasio Plus and totally rock it at that ride. Like there'd be nothing, you'd be no different than anybody else. So I think that's really cool. Like that's sort of my, personally, like where I like to see Microshift go is kind of doing these things that are sort of democratize all this cool technology that that's come out in the bike world. Like, one by, it's awesome. There's no reason not to run a one by unless you really need all those little, super fine, cadence chunks. And so, why not make that available on a $900 bike or $1,000 bike?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Nicasio Plus. I actually got my most supple budget bike of the year award last year.
Nice. You got good taste, man, because that thing rocks.
Yeah. So as one of the questions that comes up a lot is, the external cable routing on the shifter is part of that. We talked about all the patents. Is the patent wall part of the issue in getting internal routing?
Yes. I mean, certainly. It's a thicket of patents. That shifter design that, it's kind of our, I don't know, in like Microshift part number nomenclature or whatever, it's like our 400 level shifter. And so we make a lot of different compatibilities for that shifter, 9-speed, 10-speed, 11-speed, and then the Advent X and Advent compatible. It's a really old design, so that's been around since Shimano had external cable routing. If you remember the old Shimano, like the Dura-Ace 7800 stuff, was killer. That stuff was awesome, and it had external cable routing. Really, it has some advantages. It's really easy to recable. Like you just recable in 2 seconds. Replace all the housing. It's no problem. And because the cable doesn't have to bend inside the shifter, the shifting is actually a little smoother too. So to answer your question though, we have come out with shifters since then. So we have like our CentOS shifter is internal cable routing. The trouble is when you have internal cable routing, there are all these patents. And so we did a campy style thumb trigger. But then with that campy style thumb trigger, we couldn't figure out a way to make that compatible with the extra cable pull, right? I mean, if when you're trying to fit the brake and all the shifting bits, and then a giant spool to pull mountain cable, it's kind of tough to do. So
Right.
I'm not going to rule us out yet. We'll keep working on it.
Right.
But for now, this is really the best option we have, and I think it's a damn good option.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it puts some people off. And I was kind of aesthetically, but again, I've gone over it. My biggest concern is, does it interfere with all the handlebar bags I use?
Right.
And I tried it with no modifications and it worked fine. And then to satisfy the YouTube comments, I did the brake noodle trick and it worked fine.
Yep,
So,
I like that one for sure.
I mean, if you can get over the aesthetics of it, the functionality is there, the price is awesome, and the range is awesome. So.
Yep.
What's funny is, like, when I post that video, people were giving me, there's so many comments about the external ratting, and then I made this meme of of the shifter, of your shifter on one side, and it's like, oh no, and then on the other panel was a mountain bike cockpit with external cables all over the place, and somehow that's okay. But you have one cable coming out of a road shifter and people lose it.
Yeah. I mean, the big three or whatever have people well trained. It's like, yeah, they all went internal, and it makes sense, man. I mean, road bikes are more aesthetic. There's more like, ergonomics are super important to the shifter. The way that it looks, the way that it feels, it's kind of more old school in that way. And so we're just kind of saying, again, it's a little bit of a punk rock solution for now, but we're kind of saying, hey, this works really well. If you shift this with your eyes closed, it's going to feel great. It's going to give you all the features you want. Yeah, it has external cable routing. Heck, clip that to the bag. Use that as a, use that as a clip to get the bag on there. I don't think it's as big a deal as people say it is.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that. After using it, and for the last couple of weeks since I've had it, I've gone over the external cable housing. Do you guys think I know this question comes up a bit, will you guys ever venture into hydraulic braking, or is that's not there's no interest?
I mean, I don't want to give the same answer to every question, but good Lord, the patents are crazy. The hydraulic ones specifically, like, I don't want to rule it out. My goal for Microshift is to be a fully, like a full service brand. I mean, to really have a full line of products. To get there, we would need hydraulic. If we did hydraulic, we would do a version of hydraulic that's true to our Microshift kind of style, which is, we would want it to look good, function really well, but be at a more attainable place. I think that would be really hard. So I don't want to say we'll never do it. But if we do it, all those things would have to fall into place, and we'd have to figure out a way around all the patents.
Right.
Maybe we just need better lawyers. I don't know.
There you go. new legal team.
Yeah, that's one way to solve it.
Right. Let's see. Well, I think I'm going to open up to Zoom questions. If you're in the Zoom room and have a question for Gus and Microshift, raise your blue hand. And you guys in the YouTube chat, hope you guys are enjoying this. If you're digging this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It helps give the video view velocity, all that good stuff, and ask some questions, and I will relay it to Gus. So any questions in Zoom? Not yet. Okay. I love that you guys still support bar end shifters.
Yeah, man. We love bar end shifters. I personally love bar end shifters. I think they are like the most tactile feeling shifter, it's just a lever, there's no artifice, it's just, you pull that thing and then you go to a different gear. And there's something that's really cool about that. It's simple. You can put them back together, like on a tour in the middle of nowhere. You can carry spares with you really easily, it's kind of a great solution.
Yeah, for me, the big attraction is that it just, if you put it in friction, it will work. It will mostly work with almost every drivetrain you can slap it on.
Yep.
So it's a good for me and the YouTube channel when I have to test a bunch of things. You know, we don't have that GCM money to buy all the individual shifter and bits to make everything work perfectly.
Yeah.
But I slap on a bar and shifter it and bam. Cool. Well, in the YouTube chat, let us know where you're watching from. And if you have questions, I'll pass it on to Gus here. So Brad Thomas asked, electronic shifting, is that?
Yeah, man. Electronic
same
shifting
answer.
is a whole big thing. We had I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, there was like a big buzz because we had, some of our like engineers or somebody let, kind of let it slip that like, hey, yeah, we're working on electronic. And we have been working on electronic that whole time. Again, it comes down to, can we release something that makes sense for where we want to be, for who we are, right? If we come out with something that has, that works pretty well, and is maybe a little cheaper than Shimano, and has okay battery life, it's like nobody's going to buy it. It needs to have a reason to exist. And so that's the part where, yeah, we have developed a lot of technology surrounding it, but we haven't gotten to the point where we've created something that we feel like, hey, this is a compelling product. It's just, we're not ready yet. And at this point, it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath.
Right.
There are a lot of electronics getting integrated with bikes now. And so there's probably opportunity there somewhere. But it's not on the front of our mind right now.
Right. Well, I appreciate that you guys are servicing the cable actuated market very well.
Good.
Okay, got a question here from Andy. Andy, you've got the floor.
Hey Gus, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. So you're talking about the kind of that OEM business that really drives a lot of what you do. Where do you concentrate your efforts? There's so many different ways that components can go, so many different types of bikes. What is there a specific focus? With gravel being so popular right now, your components look like they're great for mountain bikes. You guys have your parts and your kind of R&D focused in a certain direction.
Because shifting is a little bit different, right? Because it's not quite as bike specific. I think actually the Advent X group is a great example where, it's a mountain bike group. Can you spec it on a gravel bike? Sure. What's the difference between a gravel bike and a mountain bike? Those lines are really getting blurred, and so the way I think of it is we have wide range product and we have kind of narrow range product, like stuff that's, would have been considered road at some point. Maybe it works with 1132. We're really focused on, first of all, creating products that appeal to both. We can't live without one. We can't just say, hey, we have a great OEM product. It doesn't work in the aftermarket at all. So, or vice versa. So we want to make sure it works in both places. So we're really looking at that wider range market right now and saying, hey, yeah, that's the place where we can continue to make product that other companies aren't making, and that's really our goal. We don't want to have something that's, you can say, oh, well, sure, they have an okay version. SRAM has a better version. Shimano has a better version, or whatever. We want to say, hey, this is the only version available that does this stuff, It's tough, again, because of the world of patents and blah, 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 all that stuff. But it's also kind of easy because not every company can do everything. We don't need to be, when Shimano comes out with a new group, they're coming out with something that they need to sell in every market in the world. And they need to sell a lot of it in order to make it make sense for them. For us, we could kind of look at it and go, hey, what are some areas of cycling, like bar end shifters, right? There's no incentive for Shimano to make a 12-speed mountain bike compatible bar end shifter. They just don't care. It doesn't, it's not going to happen. For us, we look at it and go, hey, I bet somebody wants that. It's not going to cost us too much to, we can kind of develop it because we have all the parts, we just need to make new internals for the shifter. We can kind of come out with that and service a small market that really appreciates it.
Yeah. A lot of those people watch our YouTube channel, by the way.
Good. See everybody.
I will say that. We got a question here from Brian.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming on. My question is, how does Microshift compare to box components? Are they your biggest competitor, or are you trying to go for a higher quality than them or a lower price? I mean, how?
Yeah, Box is a really different company than us.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in the same, we have 9-speed stuff, they have 9-speed stuff. We were first, so I will say that. No, but really the biggest difference is how the company is like organized, right? Box does a lot of BMX stuff. They have a drivetrain. They've done a lot of marketing around their drivetrain. They have a lot of different manufacturing partners for their drivetrain. And Microshift is coming at it from like almost the opposite perspective, where Microshift is really a manufacturer. We have a big factory in Taiwan, and most of the payroll goes towards manufacturing and engineering. I'm me and another guy in the US are really like the eyes and ears for a lot of the bike market, at least in the US. So we don't have nearly the same advertising budget. We don't have nearly the same kind of reach that way. But drivetrain stuff is really hard to make. Derailleurs are insanely complicated. And it's not just the design. It's like manufacturing all those little parts to fit together and fit together every time. And the cheaper it is, the harder it is to make. XTR, it's weird to think about that, but really expensive stuff is actually a lot easier to make than cheap stuff that works well. That's a much tougher thing. And that's why Shimano doesn't have very much competition. So we really see Shimano is more of a competitor than Box, and not to say that Box doesn't make cool stuff, because they do, but we want to make stuff that works at a Shimano level, to that kind of quality level, that offers new features that Shimano isn't doing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, we've got a question here from Jonathan. You've got the floor.
Hey everybody. Hey Russ. Hey Gus. Oh, Russ and Gus. Sorry, somebody already probably made that joke. Sorry, I got on late. My thought initially is to ask about complete group sets. I remember Microshift years ago made like this group set that was, to me, was not attractive. It was very roadie inspired, white, red, and black.
Yeah.
It was brakes. It was an entire, what we think of as a group set, including cassette.
Yeah.
Is Microshift still doing complete group sets? I know the Advent set they have levers and a derailleur, but it doesn't seem like here is an entire package that is designed to like, buy this package, it costs you $400, stick it on a frame, and bam, there you go.
Yeah, I hear you. We don't do, so we just make shifters, derailleurs, and cassettes for now.
Okay.
And I don't actually know the answer to that in terms of going back and looking at some of those older groups, like how exactly those were made or who made them, because sometimes people will say, oh, hey, we need a chain, go to KMC. I mean, plenty of people do that. Plenty of brands do that, and kind of rebrand other stuff. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're not, if we put our name on somebody else's product, we have to charge more for it because we're buying it from them, and then we're selling it to somebody who's selling it to somebody who's selling it to you, and so we don't want to do that. There's no reason for us to just get in there and put our name on something unless we're really making it, and unless we can innovate on it. So for now, we're focusing on shifters and derailleurs and cassettes. In the future, sure. I mean, I wouldn't rule that out. Could we come out with cranks? Could we come out with brakes? Could we come out with a chain? Maybe. Those markets all have really good players in them, though. They're awesome. I mean, like KMC makes amazing chains. they're great. They work really well. So I look at that and go, man, if we want to compete with them, geez, you better be coming with your A game. You know what I mean? So for now, shifters, derailleurs, and cassettes, and then who knows in the future. I know, speaking of the colors too, there are definitely a couple guys in Taiwan that, man, they want to do colors. And I keep kind of trying to talk them off the ledge going, I don't think it's going to be as popular as you think it is.
Yeah.
But so this is maybe you're one person where maybe you want the colors to come back.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I know that when Box released their Prime 9, they didn't bother with the crankset. They're like, there's enough cranks out there. Those will work fine with the drivetrain.
Yeah.
Gonna hop into the did you have another question, Brian, or was your hand just up?
No.
Okay. Sorry. Lower your hand. So hopping in the YouTube chat here, we've got people from Brooklyn, Arcata, California, Hood River, Michigan. Adam Clement asks, is there going to be a bar and shifter that works with that new Advent X group set?
So that's a question we've gotten a ton, and it's really normal question because we make bar and shifters for everything else. Why don't we have one for this? Basically, we want to, and it's in the plans. It just hasn't come together yet. So I apologize for that. We definitely want to do it. Part of that, I will blame the global pandemic for that just a little bit. The timing of that, usually the way that it works is that's sort of the last thing we do with the group. And this kind of released right as everything was hitting, and we never got to the point where we developed that. So do look for it in the next 6 months, hopefully. We just haven't come to market with it yet.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So cruising down, we've got Don from Longview, Texas, Patreon supporter, someone from San Francisco, Jeffrey from Houston, Texas, Timothy from Blaine, Washington, Carlsbad, California, David from South Australia. We've got a global viewership here. Fabrizio from Lima, Peru. I don't even know what time it is in Lima. But, Berlin, New Jersey. Nice. Someone from Korea. And yeah. So speaking of aesthetics, I really like the kind of blacked out look of Advent X. Was that just playing it safe? Everything goes well with black?
A little bit of that. We want to make sure that, I think for, when people put our stuff on their bike, whether it's an OE guy or if just somebody building a bike, generally you don't want all the attention to go to the derailleur. You want the attention to be on the frame and the way that it, the whole aesthetic of it. And so that is something that we think about. Like, yeah, we don't want it to attract too much attention. But we also want it to look cool. And I think it looks cool. Actually, one of the, we kind of put together, when we're developing this stuff, we put together like mood boards of different things to give to the engineers or the guys that are designing it. And they hate us for that. They really go like, what is this crap? Like I'm just trying to do my job. Like, get out of here with that. But one of the ideas we had was kind of like these blacked out cars and trucks, like trucks specifically that people do, where they like rattle can it all super matte black. That was kind of the aesthetic that we were going for, and I think we hit it pretty well. I'm very happy with the way that the group looks.
I'm curious, like what other pictures were on the mood board? Now that you brought it up.
No, I'm gonna really embarrass myself here because I'm such a nerdy person, and so it was like stuff like like props from Stargate.
Okay.
Like that kind of, like a lot of times, it's hard to figure out, like you kind of want a tactical look. We were looking for this tactical look that's not quite like a gun. We don't want it to look like a gun per se.
Right.
But that kind of like serious tech that maybe aliens have, maybe they don't.
So tactical. And if you ever see that hashtag. We've got another question here from Andy. I'm gonna ask you to unmute. Can you unmute your? Okay.
So what are some of the biggest challenges now that, it's the components rolled into the US? It seems to be people are into it what are some of the big challenges that you kind of face now that it's out there and people understand what you're doing?
Yeah.
What are the next steps?
We need to continue to grow. Growth is a great thing for a business, but it's also hard, and so right now Microshift is growing, and that means that there are a lot of different new responsibilities, whereas I think kind of before, like 10 years ago, it was a pretty flat management structure. There were like a few people, and they kind of were involved with everything, like including shipping out orders and everything, engineering, manufacturing, the whole ball of wax. Now we're too big for that. And we were 5 years ago too, but now with kind of some of the success that we've had with our latest kind of product releases, it's like we're really too big for that. And so if we want to, our goal is to keep coming out with new stuff that is cool and appealing to you guys and to other people in the bike world. And so we need to make sure that leadership can't be involved in every single little thing. It's gotta grow out and expand into different teams, and that's always tough. I think that's tough for every company, and you see, I think what we're trying to avoid is getting to the point like Shimano where, oh boy, there are focus groups and it's this huge behemoth, and I don't think we ever want to be quite like that. We want to be a little more agile if we can. But if we get those paychecks, man, that doesn't sound too bad either.
Do you ever run into challenges between the Chinese design teams versus kind of the wants and the needs of American riders?
No, absolutely. And that's one of the problems is that I don't speak for every American rider, right? It's like I know a fair amount about bikes, but I need to check my assumptions too. So that's kind of the first step of the process is really doing research, just trying to figure out, hey, what are people doing? What do people want? And then, when you try to communicate that to the team in Taiwan, there are some differences. Like we do have a couple engineers that are ripping it on mountain bikes now. But generally, for the most part, road riding is really what people do. And by road riding, there are no 32C tires. Everybody's running like 19s, 23s. Because the roads are great. It's a tropical island. You don't like the infrastructure is amazing. You don't need a supple tire. You can haul ass wherever you want on a really narrow tire. So they really know that world. And so when they see, when I'm like, for Advent, when I was like, hey, let's do a 1x9 wide range group, and kind of did the whole mission statement for that. They were going, what are you talking about? Nobody wants that. That's crazy. And then we got a couple of guys to go to Sea Otter. And that was really mind blowing because you just look out across the sea of, everybody and their grandma's riding by on a $5,000 mountain bike, and there are like thousands of them, and they had just never seen anything like that. They're like, wow, maybe there is a market for this mountain bike stuff.
Maybe they'll catch on after all.
Yeah, right. So it's like I think that you're absolutely right though to ask, is that a challenge? Like, sure, anytime you're trying to explain to somebody about a type of riding that they haven't done, it's going to be weird. We were talking to guys in the Netherlands that are like, yeah, all this range, we don't need that. We want 1x1132. And it's like, where else is that a thing? But, in the Netherlands, it's like, there's like 100 feet of elevation change. So that works for them. It's like, you just have to, there are all these different types of riding and you kind of got to figure out what works for each market.
How'd that discussion go with gravel? Did they get gravel, or was that?
I still don't know if we were there yet. To be honest with you, it's tough because we can't, with the current situation, we can't do events. We can't go out and, check out gravel races or whatever. It's the kind of thing where I think everybody knows and understands that it's a really popular thing. But it's kind of hard to explain exactly what the appeal of it is. The best I have, the best kind of explanation I have is that what people are riding as gravel bikes now are basically what bikes were when they were invented. Like back in the 1890s or whatever, when there was this huge bike boom, like hundreds of people would hop on bikes and go out to like the country. They go, hey, 300 people are riding out to the country for like a picnic. They all had tires that were like about 38C, 40C, somewhere in there. They were on 1-speeds, obviously. Nobody was trying to, I'm sure there was a group on the front that was kind of trying to race a little bit. And there was a group at the back that was just hanging out. And there were people that were not that concerned about bikes. There were people that were really into bikes. Like it was this really diverse mix of people all kind of riding for fun. And I think that's what gravel is. It's like, yeah, you get out. Why do you want to ride? It could be a million different reasons. A gravel bike is going to probably do that pretty well for you. And it's like way more inclusive than the like where a roadie scene is. And I think that's cool. It's a bummer to have this group of people where you're like, oh no, you can't ride with us. This is a drop ride. You can't. You're not wearing the right stuff. You don't have the right bike. Gravel isn't like that as much. There probably is still some of that, but it just feels.
I thought the question that Andy asked about, to some extent the writing that designers do, affects what they're going to design. And if they're not exposed to a type of writing or don't see, the potential use for that, then it's difficult to design the product. And I think that even happens in the US, like with the initial gravel bikes, a lot of them were, had, pretty modest tire clearances. And I think, maybe they were designing around 40, like when the Salsa Warbird came out, the first officially called gravel bike. But that's because they were thinking of the roads in the Midwest. When it started to trickle out to the Pacific Northwest and we're riding logging roads and it's really chunky, it's, 40 will do it, but, we needed more tire. And slowly, as more people started designing around, this kind of umbrella of a gravel bike, it's taken kind of regional influences and has evolved the design.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, I lived in Portland for a couple of years, and my folks are from Iowa. Like the roads in Iowa, like the B-level gravel roads in Iowa, I don't know how they call those roads. Like I don't, riding those on a mountain bike feels sketchy. So I think part of it honestly is the bike industry is really, people say, oh, well, standards are always changing and they're always changing everything on us. But really it's pretty conservative. There aren't too many companies that really go out on a limb and do something like, like Cannondale does with the Lefty. It's like, well, people disagree with that. People don't think it's great. Some people do, some people love it, some people hate it. There just aren't that many companies that are doing that. Companies kind of look at everybody else and go, hey, what are we doing? Hey, what's popular? Let's make sure we have a winner. And so that I think that's why you see a lot of these gradual changes. Like, oh, let's slacken the head tube angle out by 1 degree this year. And then if people like that, let's do 1 degree next year, that kind of.
We'll go crazy, half a degree. Let me see who else is in here. We've got Iowa, Steve Fuller. He runs a couple of events based out in Iowa. Loves his B roads out there. Let's see who else is in the chat. Let us know. Patagonia, Chile is in the house.
Nice.
Thanks for tuning in, Pavel. Wonder what time it is over there. We got St. Louis, Missouri, Tallahassee, Florida, Cycle Bum melting in Sacramento. Nice. Any other questions in the Zoom room? We're getting close to our hour mark. So if you got any last minute things, I guess what else? I mean, I know you guys are probably working on a ton of projects that you can't talk about, but what do we have to look forward to from Microshift?
More stuff. We just really want to keep pushing and coming out with product that that's different. So look for us to push things, and not just in terms of price point. We're kind of right now we're doing more value oriented product. If there's an opportunity for us in the high end, we're going to take it. We want to we don't want to limit ourselves. So basically, I think all the things that you're thinking of, we probably have on our timeline at some point. We probably have on our board. Whether or not we get to it, it's like we got to put out all these fires. We got to make sure that everything is growing in a stable way. And we don't that's the other thing I'll say. We never want to come out with a product that we can't support. So, we have a 4-year warranty on our stuff, and that's really important to us. We want to make sure that stuff just works, and that we're not, that we're not leaving anybody high and dry. So,
yeah. So are you the only US based employee right now?
It's me and another guy. So, we do all the stuff, and he's, he kind of grew up in Taiwan and then moved to the US when he was 13. So we're a good team. He kind of has, and he has a mechanical engineering degree too. So, I can kind of say all my stupid bike idea stuff, like, hey, what if we do this, and then he can kind of be like, he can kind of translate it into stuff that makes better sense for the engineer. So, we're a pretty formidable duo.
Yeah. They're like, I'll translate for the mood board guy.
Yeah, exactly. I should have never said that. I don't,
I love it. It's awesome. Cool. Well, I think I'm gonna take it home here. So thanks again, Gus. I think this was super informative. It was great to learn more about the brand. I know, I've been using your aftermarket parts to hack all sorts of things over the years. Really stoked on the new groups that hope other people will try it out as well. And thanks again to our Patreon supporters that make this content possible. And if you guys like this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Helps the channel grow, and we've got tons of more live streams coming to you soon. So until next time, keep the supple side down.